this is all the campers, and it's from 1951, which is very beautiful to see all of these campers together.
It was groundbreaking and very brave because that was absolutely still during Jim Crow days. So, even as you move from from the South, and there was that great migration still when you got to California, there were still invisible boundaries and barriers that were very much still in place. So it was very important work that was going on.
We do have photos from the 1960s. They are hard to scan because they are all this size. And what's interesting actually is the transition between the name Anytown to Brotherhood. And we have this flyer that is from 1968 that shows the transition. So they changed the name to Brotherhood. Brotherhood from NCCJ. We have these patches. Would anyone like one? We can send one to you. We have
Very
a lot
nice.
of them. Elise, do you want one? Okay, we're gonna mail it to you. Ryan, do you want one? Did you already get one? Okay, no. If anyone wants one, please just tell us because we have this many of them and we don't need that many of them.
Yeah.
We're happy to give them away.
From what I remember about that period, I think there was very much still a crossover from the experiences and what was happening across the country in the very late 60s. Still had an impression on what happened into the early 70s. And there really seemed to have been a collective effort across the country really to embrace the whole concept of diversity. I would say where we are in 2024 is a lot more regressive than what it was in the 70s. And it was just a really great opportunity in terms of the environment and the openness and the willingness of people to want to have dialogue around differences. It was embraced and welcomed to better understand where people what their perspectives were and what their life circumstances and experiences were that helped to shape who they who that person was.
I mean, so when I went to camp, it was 92, which was right after the Rodney King verdict and the uprising then. So it was a very emotional time in LA. And now I have my daughter is 14 and she's in high school, and it's interesting to just hear like echoes of the same things over and again. Like last year there was a lot of racial bullying at her school of Asian kids because she was in a Mandarin immersion program, which was like a small subset of her cohort, and it was a mostly white school, and it was very unfriendly. But now she's like in a totally different, she's like at an art school, and it's like much more accepting. So it's been interesting to see her journey like through her early teenage years.
Hearing Pamela, I wanted to share that I'm a mother too of two teenagers, and it just made me think about how like the absence of space, containers to hold our differences. Like I think you read something and they were talking about it, the camp being like a refuge. Initially I remember like it is kind of very microscopic, kind of condensed version and feeling for myself like a sense of stranger danger or what have you. And then it, after like truth telling, after collective truth telling, there's like healing, and then you feel the refuge, where you've kind of put down your mask and other people have put their masks down too. So what I'm kind of reverberating and feeling right now is that just I wish I had a space too where, and I feel like in some ways I have created them, but where, like in daily life, I didn't have to mask up so much, I didn't have to like, and just be with others, with a sense of like refugeness. And unfortunately, I feel like in so many ways in daily life where so many public spaces have been privatized or, what have you. It's like coming together as community or collective, or like knowing your neighbors or people kind of knowing each other is not easy, especially because even my family, I don't know them. There's always like masks up, and it's shocking and amazing how within that 1 week camp frame, so many of us were able to like come out, not just, as, what I'm saying? Like as our quote unquote ourselves. And that's, I think, why camp was so powerful, that truth telling.
Thing I was thinking about with both of you as mothers of teens is like, get your kids up to camp. It's still happening. Brother and sister camp, that we went to was that week long. Every single day was so intense with a different focus. And CCEJ now does it as 2 different camps, with a racial justice camp in the spring, and it's a weekend, and it's focuses on racial justice, but then talks about all of the systems of oppression and how they coordinate, and how the different systems of oppression are used, to keep people in power. And those are talked about. So even though they may not be a focus of the weekend, they're still very much we talk about gender justice or health privilege and sexual orientation, and how there's intersections there. And then there's the fall camp, which is the gender justice camp, which is also a weekend, where they focus on gender equality and sexual identity. And that is it also a weekend. I have not attended that one yet. Yeah, it was so amazing to come back, after 30 years and kind of have my own full circle moment of like camper to volunteer, which was pretty neat. I attended in June of 1993. Pamela,
90s
you
are
said
back.
that you were a youth leader in 93. Do you know if that was August or June?
I can't remember, but looking at that photo, I definitely recognized some of the youth leader faces and
Oh,
the
hold
people
on.
that are still, Facebook friends.
I think the youth leaders might have been both. So you may have been a youth leader at the camp where I was a camper.
It's possible.
When camp was over and Dottie and I were in touch with each other afterwards, we used to hang out in groups in Hollywood, and we were the most religiously, racially, ethnically diverse group of people you could imagine, and we used to have so much fun, but we also learned a lot from each other. To this day, obviously, even though it's not as much as I would like, I'm still in contact with someone from 1969, 1970. If you had asked me that then, would I still be? I would have hoped yes, but would have imagined no. And I do agree with what Dottie said about it being much more regressive now. It's really scary. But the fact that you guys are still doing this, and the way it's evolved to figure out a way to include people who, when I went to camp, we probably didn't even think about trying to include. So I'm just glad we could do this and that you guys offered the reunion.